I imagine anyone who is truly expert in any of the areas in Christian mysticism would agree that it was a very dangerous thing to try and give an overview of possibly hundreds of different texts in one talk. And I'm really just looking at things that I felt might be interesting to people exploring Thelema, people looking for that reality check on the kinds of things that happen with mystical experience. Lots of people have speculated on the sources of the mysticism of the Middle Ages. Mostly it remains speculative. Yes, we got stuff from the Greeks. Definitely some stuff came back into Europe through the Muslim scholars, and so on and so on. Were the Templars really doing something cool or not? I don't know, and I'm not personally that worried because they've been gone for 600 years now. No offense to the Ordo Templi Orientis, but that's not what I'm referring to. I mean those guys who tramped around in metal suits and never washed and stuff. And I know all my friends in the OTO wash quite regularly. Something happened in the Christian world round about 1000 to 1100 AD. There was just an upsurge of faith that led a lot of people into the monastic life. Now you got a lot of crazy stuff happening. You've got the usual borderline psychotics getting involved in this. But monastic life became more intensely organized. There was a proliferation of contemplative orders. And you find somebody who I think is a little bit out there, Hildegard von Bingen, wrote some really cool music. I love that stuff. I think she was a little bit off her head as a mystical philosopher, but some people would disagree. She was there on the Rhine round about 1000 to 1100 AD. Can't remember the dates off the top. The more interesting stuff to me comes in between about 1300 and 1600. You've got people like Meister Eckhart in Germany. You've got whoever wrote The Cloud of Unknowing in England, who might have been a Carthusian monk, we don't know. But these people were producing writings from their own experiences that were not simply the usual submission to the authority of the church or even to the inner authority of God or Christ, but were actual texts designed for people to pursue prayerfully, and by prayerfully I mean with tremendous intensity of attention, to the point that they were actually getting mystical breakthroughs. Now, this stuff always freaked out the church because the church was essentially there to guard a tradition and keep the faithful taking the sacraments so they would stand a chance of going to this heaven and not go to this hell that I said earlier that I never believed in to begin with, but they did. It was very real to them. So 90% of what we got was compiled by monks. Or nuns, because you have Teresa of Avila on my list here. They developed intense prayerful practices that they pushed to the limit. And in many cases were able to effect breakthroughs. There are still, I understand, methods used among the Carmelites in various parts of the world that are not fully published. Some of the texts that they base it on are available. The actual techniques of prayer seem to be only taught to people who've gone through the novice stage. The church was almost stuck with having to crack down on anyone who went outside the monastery walls, and frequently on the ones inside the monastery walls, in order to preserve itself. Christology, theology, these things are kind of add-on to the core mystical experience of the ages. A lot of the worst aspects of Christian practice are really nothing more than efforts to contain and to tame a raw vital experience so that it doesn't overwhelm a Christian who has it. It wasn't all about keeping people from being bad and not towing the line. A lot of it was aimed to protect those who were getting into the wilder ranges of experience. Because really, we would probably find that apart from some of the language, they were very similar to some of the more advanced Thelemic practitioners today. People were really breaking through with highly individual relationships to the divine. Spiritual truth is fire, always has been. Alchemically speaking, fire comes outside of the human organism. If air relates to mental activities, or at least in the tradition I've learned it, air is the mind, earth is matter. I've definitely got a body. I broke a bone of it to prove this last week. Water kind of takes you a little bit beyond that. Fire always is inspiration from outside. It can't be contained, it isn't respectable. Fire just does what it does. It does not follow anybody's ethical or disciplinary code, it just has its effects. So the church found itself needing to exercise its authority as the fire extinguisher in many cases. It was caught there. But it meant there was always this conflict with the mystical community. The Inquisition came up with the perfect antidote. Why don't we just burn the heretics? And then they can really have all the fire they want and problems solved. It meant that a lot of mystical traditions, of course, were lost along the way. Because the techniques couldn't be passed on. Yes, you could have the ecstatic poetry, yes, you could have the devotional text, but if nobody could tell you what you had to do to experience that, then the essence of the thing is lost. I'm quoting my own words here because this gets a bit more technical than what I was saying before. The notion of the surging, dangerous energy of vital spiritual experience is projected out onto others. So instead of saying, and this was what the church would have said, our experiences frighten and shake us and we must learn to contain and direct them. And church authorities would tell people that they, that is, the other people, must contain their own vital urges lest they actually follow them. Thelema finally said, well, we've got rid of the authority of the church in this time, why not just take all of the blockages off, undo all the locks, and say anybody who is willing to work at this can be given secrets. So this is a key difference now between the last Aeon, that of Osiris, as we say, Osiris the father figure, and this Aeon of Horus, the child, the son. Osiris, in the Thelemic understanding, is related to suffering and to self-denial. It's a way of eliminating the ego and its structures by beating down and breaking down all of the individual objections, all of the individual need to preserve ourselves. Hopefully, if this is done right, then you will have removed egoic obstructions and the light can descend and illuminate you. It can also, of course, produce bitter, frustrated, sexually distraught neurotics who don't get to do very much. It's very interesting.